Okay, welcome back to X Corp Radio final hour. I didn't get a chance to say a proper goodbye to Deborah, so I'm going to bring her back on just for a second because if you can, stay for just a few more minutes. I wanted to hear about your a presentation that you're going to make at Beyond the Matrix. Are you going to make a musical presentation, or are you going to make a lecture on your travels in the Yucatan or in Egypt? What are you going to do?
I'm actually going to be doing pictures of the ETs I have met and the messages that they bring. Then I'm going to be doing just a one-song performance, but it's going to be activational. And then have my latest CD out is Ascension. It's called Ascension CD, so I'll be doing the Ascension activation.
Well, I'm going to be sure to make plenty of room in my luggage because there's going to be some cool stuff there.
Absolutely.
I have to pack all my books in the luggage, and hopefully people will buy the books, and I can turn around and buy all your stuff and come home with some cool stuff too. Very, very neat. Very neat. Well, I hope all the snow melts, and I hope it's going to be an amazing March 19th and 20th in Sedona.
Yes, yeah. The snow doesn't stay very long here anyway. So no, March is a beautiful day. It's a beautiful time to come. It's March. Yeah.
This is a middle of the week almost event, but the reason it's important is that Suzanne felt that the important part was to have this event actually on the spring equinox.
Yes.
So a lot of changes.
Wow, you're playing here.
I hear background.
Yeah, the equinox is very powerful. Yeah, the equinox is a very powerful time. This is fascinating if you have time. In Egypt, in the Great Pyramid, I did, was it the Lion's Gate, 2008, March equinox. I did a toning with a group of 12 people there. Picked out the key I wanted to tone with, which was the heart chakra, and then Spirit comes and changes the key on me, says no, because I had my tuning forks with me, do this key, and we started toning, and a Tibetan monk chanting started happening in the chamber. I thought speakers were on or something. There's temple guards there, and I said, where is that sounds coming from? And he kept pointing to me. And I go, is there speakers in here? Are you playing some Tibetan chanting? And he says, no. He kept pointing at me and my group. And we were not chanting Tibetan monk chanting. We were just toning a tone. And I found out that if you play a certain frequency key, that's what happens in this great chamber of the pyramid. It's amazing.
That is pretty amazing. I have been in Tibet, and I was in a temple that was built a long time ago. In fact, the timbers that held up the roof were about I'm going to say 16 or 18 inches in diameter, and there's no wood like that anywhere in Tibet. I don't know where they hauled this wood from, but it was a long ways away, like really tall pines, and they just don't exist in here. Anyway, they had these stiff kind of, because it was only about maybe 38 degrees there. They had these stiff kind of red, almost like teepee coats, and you could sit on the cushioned bench and then close the teepee around you where only your head is sticking out, and that way your body can stay warm while you're in there, chanting. So we sat in the back and we closed the teepees around us and, took advantage of the stiff wool that they were to keep yourself warm. And we listened to them chant. And the weird part was that they could do something with their voice. and it would sound like they were singing or chanting in 2 octaves at the same time with their voice.
Yep.
It was very. At first, I thought, oh, it's some kind of harmonic echoing off the walls. No, it was actually coming out of their throats. They could do these 2 tones at the same time. Quite remarkable.
Yep. I've heard that. Yeah, I've seen that done actually by somebody who does Tibetan chanting. I don't know how they do it.
I don't know.
It's amazing.
Hanging from the ceiling, they have these fabric, I want to call them like tubes, except there are several layers to them. And you can walk up under them. They're overhead high, I guess about 7 feet off the floor. And you can look up inside of them. Of course, they're just jet black, up in there, because there's no lights in any of these temples. They don't have electricity in these areas. But I swear, one of the times I looked up inside there, I could see stars. I could see stars like I was looking out into space. And it was daytime outside, but that was really cool. It was only accessible during what they call the dry season. We were there in April, which is not very warm in the upper plateau of Tibet. We were up around 16,000 feet. And normally it's snowy and rainy, and this riverbed is full of water, melting off of the mountains. But this was the dry season, so we were able to walk up the sandy riverbed to this temple, and we went in there and listened to them chant. It was magical. I mean, just magical. Like, not one of those places that you would see, off the road. It's not like a truck stop. There's no roads there. You have to walk up in there. At 16,000 feet, everything is there except oxygen. You don't get to breathe.
Wow.
You have to walk, and it's pause and walk and then pause and walk and then pause. And if you're not in shape, you're not making it. You're just not making it. So I think there's maybe 8 of us of the group that actually made it that far. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Very magical. Yeah, it's magical in some of these places. It still has the energy there, the ancient energy as well. In Tibet, the toning actually creates those energies. It just brings in that frequency, and people don't realize how it just maneuvers things into like higher realms, and being able to see things and hear things like you could see through the ceiling and the stars, things like that. That does happen. And it also happens, I was in a, what do you call a sweat lodge. And that happened to me in a sweat lodge where the whole inside, you can't see. First of all, in a sweat lodge, it's dark. You can't see anything. And you see a little fire going, and that's about it. You can hear people talking, but you really can't see anything. Well, this one time, the whole inside of the sweat lodge turned into a temple, and I looked up, and you could see stars because the frequencies is raised, and there's no limits of anything, and so anything is possible.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to Sedona, and I'm hoping that all the people that are listening on TFR, Truth Frequency Radio, and all the people watching on YouTube are going to the website, which is at x2radio.com. The link is right there on the YouTube. You can see there. Click on the events button on the left-hand side and use the promo code Brooks25. You get 25% off. If you want to bring a friend, we have a 2-for-1 using Equinox 241. Equinox 241 as the promo code, and you can bring 2-for-1 until March 1st. So it's filling up fast. We want you there. We want you there because we want to see you face to face. We want you to feel what we feel there, because this is, as I have declared 2019 to be, the year of light, and it's time to crank it up. So you're getting your refund check back, that big fat refund check that President Trump's given you. Don't go blow it on something like a jet ski, okay? Come to Sedona. You feel it. I feel it. We'll see you there. Thank you so much for being on the program, Deborah.
Well, thanks for having me, and I will be seeing you soon.
All right. Drive safely out there. Not everybody knows how to drive in snow.
Yes, that's true.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Earth Explorers, let's carry on with the program. Let me go see if I can pull up the chat room really quickly and see what's going on, what questions. What? You're talking about weight loss? You guys weren't even listening. I'm kidding. They're talking about other stuff. So I talked about in my book called Alienated Nation, I talked about the new Civil War. And those of you that are watching the news or listening to the news or following me on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or Minds or Gab or even Alignable, you probably already know that there's a civil war going on. And the war is not in the streets in the sense that we're dividing, the country in half and we're ready to go to war like that. This war is it's more than a war of ideas, because really this war has been seething for a while in Washington. Our government has been subject to very powerful forces inside what is well known as the military-industrial complex. Well, what is that? It's a very political engine that managed to get bolted into the Pentagon right after World War II. Harry Truman used the fascist tools that were put in place by FDR. He liked it. He liked the corporate government. He thought it could very expeditiously get America back up and on its feet. It was later codified by Jimmy Carter as the SES, the Senior Executive Service. So you had this string of Democrat presidents that took the agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations, and I'm also talking about the Department of Defense, in a fascist direction, in the sense that we have a very entrenched, very powerful, very wealthy bureaucracy, for lack of a better word, that runs inside our own government. And the president has no control over that. Congress has no control over that. So civil division is really timeless. It has been used by tyrants to step on the people. It has been used by the people to remove kings and even remove presidents. It has been the same for thousands of years, but there is a secret combination to it. And I want to discuss the basics of that secret combination right here tonight so that you can have it clear in your mind. You know what's going on. The oaths and covenants to empower certain individuals with supernatural success is actually irrelevant when compared to the rules of war. Yes, there are rules to war. I write about it in the Birth Trilogy. I write about it in the book Charm of Favor. There used to be only two types of weapons: lethal weapons and non-lethal weapons. Now, there is a third type of weapon. You see, the syndicate has utilized this new weapon of this civil war very well. Hillary Clinton wrote her thesis on this work, and grassroots movements from both the left and now the right, they use these tactics as the template for action. And yet many people like you may have no clue what is being done to you. You have no clue that you're being manipulated and you're being defeated almost every single day without weapons and almost without money. What follows is for those who want to change the world from what it is to what they believe it should be. The Prince was written by Machiavelli for the haves on how to hold power. Rules for Radicals was written for the have-nots and how to take that away. And this is what you're seeing in the embodiment of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. These rules have been published, and they were used by street protesters for 40 years. But now they are much more sophisticated, and they're automated. Many of you have felt the force of the bottish armies as they call for violence and repeat their mantra-like programs, these non-player characters. Well, get ready to hear the secret code of how the socialists are planning to take down America. They almost did it. They almost did it. The rule number one is power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. Power is derived from two main sources, money and people. Have-nots must build power from flesh and blood, which is what they're doing. That's what Antifa is. That's what Black Lives Matter is. That's what these groups are. All these 501c3s, they're not money. They're flesh and blood. Rule number two, never go outside the expertise of your people. Because if you do, everyone's going to get confused, they're going to get afraid, and they're going to retreat. Rule number three is whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy, which they do. Fortunately, we have X Squared Radio. You have autists out there who realize what's going on, and they try to feed you the information so that your expertise can be raised and you can counter what is happening. Rule number four, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. This is what you heard on the news just in the break. They have said, well, the president has never used the Emergency Act to do what Congress wouldn't do. Oh, really? Oh, really? Like, I think maybe every single president in history since 1976, surely every president has used the Emergency Act to do what Congress would not act on. Every single time, the president is a different party than Congress. The Emergency Act has been used by the president to get something done that he feels and the people feel need to be done. Because Congress does not represent the people. They haven't represented the people in a long, long time. Number 5, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. If you can ridicule somebody, you can tear them down, you can turn them defensive, you can make them try to defend themselves. In fact, you can make them fight back. And that's what we're seeing happen. That's what we're seeing happen. When you ridicule the president, we finally have a president. If you slap him, he will turn around and break your jaw. If you insult him, he will turn around and insult you worse. So, number 6 is a good tactic, is one your people enjoy. If people like burning cars and breaking windows, then that's the tactic you want to use. Number 7, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. You have to constantly change it up. Haven't heard much from Black Lives Matter, have you? You know why? Because it's a drag. People are bummed out by it. They don't want to hear about that anymore. So they change it up. It's something else. I'm getting to a point here. Number 8 is keep the pressure on and never let up. Number 9, the threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. That's why most people just kind of wait it out, and you'll see that it's not all it was really cracked up to be. Number 10 is the major premise for tactics is the development of operations that will maintain a constant pressure upon the opposition. It is this unceasing pressure, like we see from the fake stream media. Constant pressure that results in the reactions from the opposition that are essential for the success of the campaign. The panic, the name-calling, the ad buys, the fear of going out and talking to the media. It should be remembered not only that the action is in the reaction, but the action is itself the consequence of reaction and of reaction to the reaction ad infinitum. And that's why you see shows like The View, and you see shows like, Joe Lieberman and not Joe Lieberman, but Joe Scarborough and Rachel Maddow. It goes on and on and on. It is the reaction to the reaction to the reaction. And the pressure produces reaction, and constant pressure sustains this action. So number 11 is, if you push a negative hard and deep enough, it will break through into its counter side, positive. This is based on the principle that every positive has its negative. We already have seen the conversion of the negative into the positive in Mahatma Gandhi's development of the tactic of passive resistance, which, by the way, wasn't all passive resistance. There were a lot of beatings, there were a lot of fires, there were a lot of riots. There was a lot of sacrifice. Number 12, the price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. You cannot risk being trapped by the enemy in his sudden agreement with your demand and saying, "You're right, we don't know what to do about this issue. Now you tell us." So what you want to do is create a constructive alternative. That's like shutting down the government. Oh, no, you don't want to shut the government down? Well, then how about doing this? Or, we're not going to give you a single dollar for the wall. Okay, we'll give you $1.3 billion for the wall. But you can't build a wall. You can build a fence, and it has to be temporary. You see, there's always a constructive alternative that keeps your opponent off balance. And then you want to pick the target, you want to freeze it, you want to personalize it, and you want to polarize it. This is the politics of personal destruction. So the next time you see a political movement or campaign in action, compare their tactics to this list I just read you, and you'll know how you are being manipulated. And please, Earth Explorers, please, let us not forget that these are the street-level aspects of civil war. The lack of any army on the planet to challenge us means that our enemies must utilize another method of war. We know it as the deep state. In actuality, it is nothing more than a network of spies. It's network of spies, just like we're seeing with McCabe and Comey and Brennan and Clapper. It's a network of spies. Well, as it turns out in the art of war, there are 5 types of spies. Let's see if you can relate to this. We don't believe in spirits or demons who can learn or divulge a secret or plant information. Let us assume that knowledge of the enemy's dispositions can only be obtained by other men. So once we make that assumption, once we make that rule, then only men can discover what other men are doing. All forces in the world use spies. And here are the 5 classes. I'm going to name them, and then I'm going to describe to you what's going on with them. We've got about a minute. I'll go through these 5, and then when we come back from the break, I'll describe to you what these 5 types of spies do. The first are local spies. The second, inward spies. The third, converted spies. The fourth, doomed spies. And the fifth, probably the most treacherous, are surviving spies. So When these 5 kinds of spies are all at work, and believe me, they are all at work in the deep state, inside the White House, inside the Pentagon, none can discover the secret system. This is called divine manipulation of the threads. It is the sovereign's most precious faculty, and we're going to talk about it when we get back right after the break. This is X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew. We'll be right back after this. Don't go.